IVM.
Can AI tell me if the price of Bitcoin is up or down? Can it tell me when is a good time to buy more Ethereum? The answer to both those questions is yes. AI is an amazing field that makes so many processes seamless and easy, and it can be tremendously useful to know exactly how it works. Luckily, Intel's Digital Readiness Program is here to empower everyone with skill sets, mindsets, and tool sets to use in an AI-fueled world. So you can be ready to develop AI for sports if you want to as well. The Intel AI for Youth program is an initiative that guides today's youth to an understanding of AI, how it's designed, and why it's important today. Intel's been working with the CBSE, Ministry of Education, and the Government of India to empower today's youth to build social impact solutions while demystifying what AI is. How do you take advantage of this? Purchase an Intel Core-powered PC and you get free access to 80+ hours of immersive and hands-on training about AI. On completion of the program, along with a certificate, you get access to AI toolsets to put what you learn to good use. So, don't wait. Log on to futurebanawonderful.intel.com. Future Banaw Wonderful by bringing home an Intel-powered PC. Hi, welcome to a show about crypto with Rohan Joshi. And as you may have guessed from the title, my name is about crypto. We've talked a lot about crypto over the last couple of episodes. We have covered everything from what is a Bitcoin, and we've got all the way to what are wallets and how you store crypto. Today, my guest is Roshan from Gox.io. And Roshan, welcome to the show. I have brought you here to talk about the dark underbelly of crypto. Roshan, we're here today to talk about hacks and scams in the cryptoverse, because here we have this technology that is supposed to be secure, that's supposed to be encrypted, that is supposed to be all of those things. But as we have found over the decade or so of its existence, it has been vulnerable to certain things. And these things, I'm going to divide them for the purposes of this episode into hacks and scams, because they're obviously separate things. And I'm going to start straight off with a very simple question. Roshan, how do I steal someone's crypto?
First of all, thanks for having me, Rohan. That's a very generic question. There's so many different ways, right? The biggest way is for a user to be careless. I think that's the most easiest way for someone to kind of steal your crypto.
I just leave my private keys around and there goes my crypto, basically.
No. The problem is that people don't even know what private keys are. Just store it. They just store it on the exchanges. They probably don't have two-factor authentication enabled, and someone just logs into their account or even the phone. Their crypto is just secured by the phone passcode. So we have so many cases. I know a few of our friends as well that got the crypto stolen because of these mechanics. And this is where, crypto has crypto needs to improve a bit. Where it's, for a layman, it's extremely difficult to securely store your crypto. And if it gets stolen, who do you go and ask for? There's nobody, right? So I'm really hoping for exchange traded funds down the line, because once that becomes live, then people can actually hold crypto without actually holding crypto. So
can you explain that? Can you explain that a little bit to me?
Yeah, so the Winklevoss twins and a few others are trying to go behind this thing called Bitcoin ETF in New York, like how we have gold ETFs and all that. So they want to get these exchange traded funds for Bitcoin and other major cryptos. And so in that once that is approved by the SEC, people can start buying crypto without actually buying crypto. So you're without actually holding crypto. Like if you buy in the gold ETF, you don't hold gold. You just hold the ownership. That you allocated this much of gold. So, and that would enable a lot of people to enter this entire ecosystem, because then there's no concept of private keys and storage and things like that.
Sure.
But again, the beauty of Bitcoin and other major cryptos is that you get complete control of your own keys, of your own software. And if people are technical enough, I think that's the best way to store it. Just take it and keep it with you, and don't trust anybody else.
Don't trust anybody else is a good motto in life in general, I feel. So there's two ways of looking at it, right? One is where I could get hacked, as in my private personal wallet or my private personal crypto taken off my phone. And another trend that seems to have dogged the crypto space for the last decade or so is hacks that happen at the exchange level, where entire exchanges are getting hit. Could you throw some light on things like, say, for what happened with Gox, or what happened with, say, Bitfloor or Binance, just to explain how these exchanges, which again, I'm guessing as a layperson, you think the exchange knows what it's doing, the exchange is a secure place, but then these exchanges go out there and get hacked. How did something like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gox. I mean, one day probably this will be a case study in many books. And Gox is what kicked off this entire thing about Bitcoin and hacks and stuff like that. So I mean, so Gox was, I mean, like I was reading a little bit upon it, and I in fact I met a security engineer in San Francisco a few years before, and he was recruited to check into the entire systems of Gox. So for those that are not familiar, like Gox was hacked for over $450 million. There were actually two hacks. The first was like 2000 BTC. And after that hack happened, this person was recruited to see like what happened and all this stuff. And
I'd also just like to clarify for our listeners that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Roshan, but I'd just like to clarify for our listeners that the Gox hack was, I think, almost a decade ago now. It is one of the first sort of big hacks that happened.
Yeah.
2012, yeah. So that was one of the first. So I just also want to point out that when Roshan says 2000 Bitcoin, he's talking about a time where Bitcoin was not worth what it is today. So 2000 Bitcoin hack was not as terrifying, but still terrifying. Now that we've given them that context, Roshan, please go ahead.
So after that happened, was like this guy had to go and audit the entire systems, and he came up to a conclusion: is just carelessness, because the founder Mark Karpeles was more of a technical guy, and he wasn't that good at his job, and a lot of private keys and stuff like that weren't encrypted, and they were just stored in in regular database. And if you're a financial institution, like I think at that time Gox was doing like 70% of all Bitcoin volume in the world, and and a lot of the services there wasn't even version like the techies would understand that why version control is extremely important for softwares, and and the Gox employees did not even do version control for their softwares. So this was a huge pain point, and hackers gained access to the systems. They, I mean, like the API keys where they store the funds in the hot wallet, and they just logged in and they just withdrew all the cryptos. So this was like a huge problem like for everybody, and that was the time when I kind of like got to hear about Bitcoin in those early stages. And so when I go into crypto, I'm like, oh, what is this? This is like crazy. Like, this is an unsafe place.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, like for a lot of new people that enter, right? They read things like this. It's extremely terrifying. But yeah, I mean,
this is also one of those philosophical things where it's like, for the layperson, if the thing that sometimes boggles my mind is if the layperson knew sometimes just how flimsily there, and I'm not just talking about the crypto space, I'm talking about in general, so many financial institutions that we take for granted. If the layperson knew sometimes just how flimsy the layers of protection that their money have is, I don't know if they'd sleep well at night, because I feel like this mirrors, I remember when the app explosion happened, even in the non-crypto space, right? Today, when it was apps like Zomato, Swiggy, etc., this, that, there were all these horror stories coming out of passwords and accounts being stored on unsecured Excel sheets and things like that, which was just super easy for people to access. So this is just a warning. You know how you look at adults when you grow up and you're like, wow, adults have no idea what they're doing. You should also have that healthy skepticism about where your money is going sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said that better.
And this sort of kept going at the exchange level, where there's been like Binance has been hacked and CoinCheck has been hacked, which I think was the largest hack, if I'm not mistaken.
In the exchange scene, I guess. But I think the largest was his DeFi platform, right? What was his name? Poly Network, something like that. $600 million.
Poly Network. Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened there? What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this was, I think you do a buggy smart contract where someone found a backdoor into the contract, and they would do like $700 million worth of Poly Network tokens. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. We don't know because the funds came back eventually. Like the hacker was nice enough to kind of like send all the funds back. But
nice enough. What a nice hacker. Wow.
I mean, like the world got to know what Poly Network after the hack. Like before the hack, hardly anybody really knew what that blockchain was. So
I mean, you used the word. You used my favorite phrase in the world, Roshan. You said conspiracy theories. Now you have to tell me what these conspiracy theories were. You use my favorite phrase in the universe. Now you have to explain what these conspiracy theories are.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like it was some sort of an inside job, and like people just trying like people that have access to the funds would they just took it out just to give it back later on. I mean, that was one of the things was I was floating a lot. But honestly, like if you look too deeply into it, at the stage that we are in right now with crypto being so big, even if you hack something, what do you really do with the funds? You can't really cash it out because I mean, to cash it, you need like a good exchange to handle that kind of volumes.
Sure.
And all the major exchanges would have kind of like flagged that particular address from where the funds would come from. So they would be instantly be able to catch who the hacker is. I think that person would have. I mean, if it wasn't the conspiracy theory, I think that person would have realized that there's no going after. And Paul Network even mentioned that they won't sue the person if they return back whatever was stolen. So I think that seems a good probable explanation as to what could have happened.
We are in conversation with Roshan about scams and hacks in crypto, and we will continue this conversation right on the other side of this very short break.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
And we are back to a show about crypto where we are in conversation with Roshan about scams and hacks in cryptocurrency. So in most financial crimes, when a crime occurs, what a lot of investigators will say, and this is my experience from just whatever little basic reading I've done, is they'll be like, you try and follow the money to sort of find the perpetrators, right? You try and follow the money. So in the crypto space, where on the one hand, you have this blockchain where every single transaction is noted, but also at the same time, the space that promises decentralization and anonymity, how does an investigator follow the money? Because my understanding is while in certain earlier hacks, the money wasn't recovered, we've seen a pattern of certain money coming back in hacks that have happened recently. So how in a space like this, where how do investigators follow the money and try and get that money back in a space like this? Or broader question then, how after a hack can a network return money to people?
Yeah, I mean, two great questions. So, I mean, in the first part, the way crypto functions, it's an extremely difficult task to kind of like trace transactions, but it's not impossible. Sure. I'm pretty sure that every major, even Mt. Gox as well, some of the Bitcoin were returned, not the entire amount, but some of them were being able to track and returned. And there was I think even coin floor hack as well. They were able to track. It was two brothers that kind of like did the hack. So ideally, like I mean, it's a long process. You kind of like see because the one thing good about blockchain is that it's transparent and anybody can make it. You can't forge transactions. So every single transaction that has happened, there's no name associated to an address, but that address actually belongs to someone, and you can see the entire trace of where of the origin and the final destination.
Okay.
And a lot of investigators they would work with a lot of exchanges and try to see like if has this transaction been transferred to your exchange or whatever. So that's how they kind of like build the trace. And then there are like a lot of tools. I think I'm not getting the name on the top of my head right now, but there are these crypto forensic tools that can kind of like track all the transactions that's happening in the globe. So a short story, like I was working at UnoCoin, one of the Indian exchanges, like about 6 years ago, and I was tasked with building a fraud detection system for the exchange. And we were working with this company again, which the name I'm kind of like forgetting, but this company has a list of every single fraudulent address and transaction in the world because at that time Silk Road, if for a lot of listeners are not familiar, like it was one of the major like it was a dark web platform, and at that time like a lot of exchanges had to take steps to ensure that transactions from Silk Road were not coming to these exchanges. So this software kind of like it flags all these different and it tells you like, hey, this address does belong to this so and so platform. And then as a security company or as an exchange, you can kind of like flag those transactions. So there's this company called Merkle Science right now, which does pretty much the exact same thing. And they've been even working with FBI as well for some sort of the hacks. So they have an entire database of all the different transactions that has happened, and they can kind of like give you an indication as to what could have happened with the funds. I mean, it's still a long task, but I definitely think that stuff like this can happen. And regarding the second part, like how do you kind of like reimburse, right? I think the best example has been with Bitfinex. Like I think Bitfinex was also hacked for like a few hundreds of millions of dollars, and then I mean they did a very nice and innovative way where they created their own token. They created their own token. It was called, I think it was called Phoenix token or something like that, and they gave that to the public. So they were like, see, we don't have the Bitcoin. I think it was Bitcoin, ETH, and Doge that was hacked. And then I see we don't have these funds, but we'll give you these tokens. And then the users started trading these tokens, and that became of certain value. It lasted for like 3 years, and within 3 years, Bitfinex was able to pay back all its clients using that token. And after they paid them back, they just put a halt to the token, and now it doesn't exist. So that was a really nice way for them to do that.
That's quite cool. And okay, so it's good to know that these forensic tools exist, and it's also good to know that the next spin-off of the CSI franchise is just going to be 4 guys poring over computers, trying to look at smart contracts and see what happened. That should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I want to move now from, I feel like I've understood the hacks part of it. And before we move into scams, I'd just like to summarize in case I've gotten anything wrong. Please feel free to jump in and correct me. Yes, cryptocurrency is extremely secure, but if it's badly managed at the human end and there isn't enough sort of checks and balances and authentication at the human end, that does leave people's individual wallets and keys and as well as exchanges vulnerable. That said, there are forensic tools and registers and means to, just because of the way the blockchain works, find a roadmap to that money and then sort of potentially give that money back to investors. Those are the hacks. Now we come to the slightly ickier side of it, which is just straight up scams. This is something that I've also personally seen in the last few years that I've been following the crypto space, which is where a new sort of coin offering will be announced. There'll be a lot of hype around it. The promoters will talk themselves up, and then you wake up the next morning and the promoters and the money's just gone. So could you explain to me what some of the scams that have happened over the last few years, some really big ones, and take it from there?
Yeah, I mean there are like plenty of them, right? I think the first scam that I was kind of like familiar with was something called OneCoin, and it is a bank. It was an India-based scam. So these guys were trying to push themselves, and I've seen them in so many different conferences across India. So so a lot of these people, like, they kind of like bank on the fact of what Bitcoin has achieved and Ethereum has achieved over the years, and they're trying to push themselves the next thing. So a lot of new investors in crypto are quite gullible, and I mean we've all been gullible,
guilty as charged.
Yeah, and then they get so fascinated, and even if some of them are not scams, right? Like I'll tell you, like, because scams are like if someone is starting a project with the utmost intent to scam people. Right. But some projects don't do that. Some projects are like, I want to be the next Bitcoin. Like, I can get fast transaction times. Yeah. I can be more secure. But then the market doesn't respond to them in that way, right? And then the founders say like, okay, I'm leaving the project right now, and you guys keep a bunch of your tokens and bag hold them, and then they just kind of exit. So a lot of users have been scammed in this way. And I think the best way to kind of like counter this is diligence, and we as part of this community have to do a lot to help people like this. And I think like even like with your podcast as well, something extremely important so that people understand as to what's happening. Because this space is only going to get bigger, right? Like, true. I mean, like, we have more crypto traders in like the past 3 or 4 years than we've had stock traders in like 10 years. Right? And
it's also interesting, right? Because I think what happened with crypto is because there's so much enthusiasm and there's so much this sort of zeal that comes from people going, this is new, this is different from the old financial ways. What really scares me about crypto is how many young people I see putting their money into crypto, right? Yeah. These are people who are putting down money for what will be their first house. So this is first job money or second job money. And it breaks my heart. These are not mature investors. These are not seasoned investors. So the allure of, you're telling me 30%, 40%, 50% returns is huge, which sort of brings me to my next crypto jargon question, which is, could you please tell us what a rug pull is and how investors can avoid a rug pull?
Yeah, basically the way I was saying, like where people get enticed into buying this new token, thinking that it's the next big thing, right? They all hoard money onto it. This new ICO, it's so amazing. I'm like guilty as charged because like I've been involved in some of this crap like years ago. Like the good thing about crypto is that it teaches you the hard way, and I think humans learn best the hard way.
School of hard knocks, Max.
Yeah, so this 2016, 2017, the ICO hype. I mean, there are a lot of these rug pull stuff, scams going around. So we just kind of like put a lot of money into it, thinking that is the next big thing. And then what happens is that, so the thing about like these tokens is that the first thing is that they get some huge advisors. This big name is over here, and this person is backing it. I think Vitalik was one of the most sought out persons during this phase. Every ERC20 token built on Ethereum wanted to have Vitalik as an advisor, and like even tokens like Omice Go, which wasn't really a rug pull token at the time, but then it kind of like became one because it's useless right now, and a lot of money people have invested thinking that it's Vitalik's, because Vitalik had officially spoken about it and stuff like that. So a lot of these people kind of like put money into all this, and then the founders just go away, and that's where decentralization matters, right? Even if the core team goes away, the community has to support the project, and it has to go away and has to go with it, and that's why I feel like I mean it's great to be a crypto guy, but you need to understand what you're getting into. This space is filled with scams, and this is what is making it difficult for regulators to regulate the space because there is so much of stuff happening. Sure. Right, and for a newbie, I would say like just stick to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and possibly something else. I don't know, like if you take the 200th number coin, you might become rich overnight, but at what cost?
This is true. That's actually very sound advice. And for anybody who's listening, if you are getting into this, I would 100% recommend your first money going into the slightly better known and stable coins. Use those as the cost of education before you start playing around in the less regulated depths of the pool. Let's just call it that. And since you mentioned regulation, what I'd like to ask you is, what kind of regulations in such a decentralized world, what kind of regulations, what can regulators or what kind of regulations be built into the network to, you can't prevent rug pulls, right? In the same way that today, nowhere in this, like you can't prevent a company from basically going public and then potentially just running off with your money eventually, right? Like for every successful IPO, there's going to be a scam IPO. But what sort of regulations can we put in place to at least make sure this happens less? Is that even a possibility? Or do we just have to accept that this is the other side of the crypto coin? All we can do is be careful.
That's a very interesting question. Like I've been pondering over the question for years, I mean, like the latter part.
That's fine.
Like,
you just need a 120-second answer. That's fine. If you could just compress your years worth of pondering into 120 seconds, that would be great. It's easy for us to say like this is the way it has to be. It has to be accepted the way it is. But I don't think that will fit well with regulators. From what I see, it is you cannot put regulations on the protocol level. Like it's not. I don't think it's really possible. Okay. What they can do is they can regulate exchanges and centralized services to make. And I think that will be a great first step. Just get the exchanges to make sure that everything is followed properly and everything is like to the books, and flag all the different addresses and stuff like that. So there are some places, some cities where regulators have kind of like asked exchanges to not allow withdrawal of crypto. You only buy and sell. I think that's even with PayPal as well. It's doing that. It's just only buy and sell. You can't withdraw. I personally am not a supporter of that because then it kind of defeats the entire purpose. I mean, like, you're trusting a third party, and you will always trust a third party. Which Bitcoin, when Bitcoin was created, that wasn't the reason. Like the reason was to keep control of your funds. Yeah, fair.
But yeah, I mean, I honestly think the first step is kind of like to regulate exchanges in a proper manner and make sure that they are compliant with all the tech that is necessary.
Right. Okay. So that's one sort of starting point there. The second thing is just in terms of since we did mention new investors, since we did mention all of those things, what is some reading or sort of scoping out the lay of the land that you can do before you invest in, say, a new coin offering, or before you invest in the new thrilling DeFi offering that's out there? What are, say, 2 or 3 simple things that investors can do in terms of background checks before they do that? And again, while 100% accepting that there is no way this is going to be a foolproof system and you could still get scammed, just what's some stuff I could do?
I think the website is an extremely important key into something like this to see, and the white paper. Like many of them just put white papers and just let it go. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, like, do not rush into buying these pre-sale tokens. It's okay. I mean, if you're really in it for making money, like, buy it in the second or the third round. Mm-hmm. See how the project is performing. Like, don't just rush and put in money. And because a lot of tokens, they raise money in the pre-sale and then they just exit, and then it's just over. Everything is over. They'll make a beautiful website, a great white paper, but that's it. Like, that's the end of the story. So I'd say, like, just research a lot, like read a little bit on the team, and just wait. And then, like, once you feel like, yes, you need to be personally attached to the project. Once you feel, wow, this is really good, doing well, then you start putting in money. Until then, if you want to be into crypto, there are so many other established tokens. Like, be in them, invest in them. And later on, once you feel that, yes, you understand how all this works, then you put in money into something that you feel that you can trust.
Got it. So if you want to eventually be the Rakesh Jhunjhunwala of crypto, please start off as the opposite of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Just start off with this assumption and humility that you know nothing, and work your way up to Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Not Rajesh Jhunjhunwala, who we don't know about today because Rajesh Jhunjhunwala did not invest well. So that's why we've never heard of Rajesh Jhunjhunwala. So when you can, always be Rakesh, not Rajesh. I have one final question before I let you go, Roshan. My colleague Kashyap has, in all caps, just shouted BitConnect, and he's given me no further context. So, Roshan, please tell me about BitConnect.
Wow, I mean, that is, I think, the biggest scam ever, right? Oh my gosh, I know so many people that got scammed in that. I mean, 2016-17 phase, so many people. I mean,
tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, this some sort of a project that, I mean, a pretty well-known founder as well behind it, and they were trying to rip off Bitcoin and trying to create this new different token. And they took a lot of money from people, and the token pumped. I think it pumped like 1,000% or something in like a few days, and a lot more people came into it. And then the founders just exited with the money. But I think they were also caught recently. I'm not sure about that.
Well, happy ending to that story.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff like this.
That's amazing. All right, then before we go, I'd just like to sum up. We talked about hacks earlier. One way to know about scams is be careful in what coins you're investing in. If you're a new investor, don't go for the super alluring new coin that has absolutely no sort of background or time in the market, because you have no idea if that's going to be around 2 days from now or not. You do not have the experience to be able to make that judgment call. So stick with stable coins and things like that. In terms of regulation at this point, it's a slight hands up in the air situation, because what really do you do in a situation like that? The exchanges do have to be better about it. And overall, just be careful with your crypto. Be careful with your private keys. Be careful with where you store that information. Be careful with hot wallets. Be careful with what exchanges you trust. Be careful with all of those things. And for that slightly terrifying but very illuminating chat, Roshan, thank you so much. I know that you have a very busy day today. You're joining us all the way from Dubai, where you're at a conference, if I'm not mistaken. And you've taken the time to be here with us today. Thank you so much. This has been very informative, and I think we're all going to be significantly more cautious from here on out. That's it from us today on A Show About Crypto. We will see you next week with another episode where hopefully it will be a little less doom and gloom in the subject. And that's about it. Thank you so much, Roshan. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rohan. Thanks.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus is joined by writer-director Faraz Arif Ansari to talk about their critically acclaimed short films, Sisak, Siberia, and the recent hit Shir Korma. On The Habit Coach, Ashton introduces us to Avinash BR, co-founder of Deep Rooted Company, and his take on the quality of the food and supply chain in India and current trends in the farming sector. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archit talk about the humble potato, right from its origin and trade history to the various ways it can be used in dishes and its health benefits. On All Things Policy, Aditya Ramanathan joins Aditya Parekh to discuss the UK's first ever national space strategy document and the lessons it may hold for India. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna slices through the drama of bad boss behavior and shares what it takes to be a good boss. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. We really appreciate you spreading this. Word of mouth helps a lot. And finally, this week, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, and Intel. We really appreciate the support.
Habits? Routines? How exactly do they help us get better? Well, to simplify it for you, tune in to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, and I'm going to be here to help you get better daily with some simple, easy-to-do habits that you can easily adapt to your life. So tune in to the Habit Coach podcast from Monday to Friday, because I believe that awesome lives start with awesome habits.